Good evening. I'd like to call this regular business meeting of the Loveland Board of Education to order at 6:07. I apologize for delay. We were trying to get everybody fitted into the meeting. I believe we are adding Mr. Broadwater as I speak. We joked and said he was in timeout, but we're going to let him into the meeting in a minute. And so I'm going to ask at this point for a roll call.
Mr. Daugherty?
Here.
Dr. Lorenz?
Here.
Ms. Pettit?
Here.
Dr. Schwetchino?
Here.
Mrs. Washburn?
Present. All present. And then our first item would be an adoption of the board agenda. I am going to move to adopt the agenda and amend the agenda by removing 8.2, the first reading of the 2022-2023 calendar. There's a little bit more work that needs to be done on it, and so it will be coming back at our December 7th meeting. So if there's a second to that agenda resolution, thank you, Mr. Daugherty, then that includes removing 8.2. Otherwise, it is the agenda that you would have seen on board docs. Does anybody have any questions or discussion about the agenda? Seeing none, Mr. Giuffre, can we vote on that?
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes.
Mr. Daugherty?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Dr. Schwetchino?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes. The first items under our agenda are 1.3 and 1.4. I see them separately, so we can go ahead and do them separately. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Daugherty. The minutes from 10/20/2021. Is there a second? Dr. Schwetchino seconded. Any questions or corrections about those minutes? Seeing none, Mr. Giuffre, can we vote on those?
Mr. Daugherty?
Yes.
Dr. Schwetchino?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes, motion carried. The next motion would be, and I'd need a motion to approve the 11/4/2021 minutes.
So moved.
Mr. Daugherty moves
Second.
and Dr. Schwetchino seconded. They're on a roll here. Any questions, comments, additions, corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, Mr. Giuffre, can we vote on those?
Mr. Daugherty?
Yes.
Dr. Schwetchino?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes.
Mrs. Pettit?
Yes. Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is to welcome our guests. And we have many distinguished guests, particularly students who are going to be recognized in a little bit. We have some other guests here who we're going to talk with. I would like to recognize Mr. Jonathan Eilert, who is in the audience and in a couple of meetings. Mr. Eilert will be joining us up here at this table. To do that, we're going to have to say goodbye to Ms. Pettit, so we'll work on that. But she's got another meeting to go yet. Anyway, I wanted to recognize that Mr. Eilert was here. And so we will be glad to have you join us. I will ask now that our guests rise and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have to say, I think something happened to our flag stand. It looks a little shorter than usual, so. Yes, so, but still our flag. Mr. Giuffre, did we have anyone sign up for hearing of the public?
I didn't see any. No, we did not.
Okay, we did not have, so we will not have any hearing of the public. We did not have any email submissions for hearing of the public, and so we will move on to presentation. Mr. Broadwater, are you introducing Mr. Mitchell, or is Andrea, or is he going to introduce himself? I'm sure he's capable of that, but.
I will introduce Mr. Bruce Mitchell, who is our college and career counselor, and I will welcome you to come up and discuss the programs and everything you have going on.
Great, thank you so much. We want to say thank you so much for this opportunity to highlight a couple of students in particular, but really to offer an overview of experiential learning. And for us this evening, it really is a reawakening for an opportunity that started a couple of years ago, and your support over these years has been fantastic. So I want to say thank you to you as we are working to bring back some amazing opportunities for students. So I'm not sure. Okay, terrific. We have a slide presentation that will go through.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm waiting for, I have to be able to share my screen, and it's asking for the host to allow me to do that.
Okay.
So if we can get that moving.
Well, the first slide is one that I can describe. So we'll keep moving forward because as a parent, I think I can appreciate this greatly. And as parents, if you're a parent, you can appreciate this. Andrew and I, when we were thinking about an experiential learning opportunity and a career education program, we're thinking about catchy titles. So we're thinking Loveland Schools Career Education Program, Tiger Steps Ahead is where we landed. Well, if you look at the next screen, we were trying to avoid anyone being in their parents' basement. So none of the
Mr.
students
Mitchell,
behind us.
Hold on a second. I just wanted to note that it is linked into board docs. Right now, we're experiencing some difficulty getting this shown. So if you are watching this from home, you can go to board docs and link on it there. Also, we're going to continue to work on that. So we're on slide 2 with the anyone have this fear.
Yes. So we decided not to name the program Loveland Career Education, Keeping Your Student Out of Your Basement in the Future, only because we thought that may not be as professional as Tiger Steps Ahead. But it's in a joke, a sense of what our heart, where our heart is with this, which is truly about student success. And as we take a look at the next slide, if you can move forward, if you can see it, great. If not, we offer some steps that are directed at every single Loveland Tiger. So 6 through 12, every year a student is going through a career assessment, a personality assessment, a career interest inventory, learning styles. All of those are measured through Naviance and usage of Naviance, but not just taking assessment, but understanding it. Oftentimes that's done in a small group setting. In this particular case, we're also highlighting some activities and specific career groups through presentations, like one in here that took place with manufacturing in the month of October. In November, we're featuring healthcare. We've got a presentation on occupational therapy at the high school. One of our presentations during the month of November, also again featuring healthcare, is our career and college workshop, and it'll feature nursing information. So you get the idea. We try to break it down into groups, and then on an individual level, we want to give students a chance to work with their counselors in a meaningful way using the data that they've gleaned. Well, that individual piece, if you want to go to the next slide, is really about finding experiential learning opportunities that will truly highlight the students' interests and truly link into their talents, interests, and abilities. We've been very fortunate here this year in 2021-22, what we have on the horizon as well as a partnership redevelopment. And organizations are offering us career shadow experiences, such as when we're looking at Miami Township Fire and EMS, one-day experiences behind the scenes, fantastic. You'll hear again from a student who participated in NovaCare in the same way, Claremont County Chamber. So the organizations there are listed for you so you can see those one-day experiences add to what has already been done in terms of the research on the student side, giving again students a chance to look behind the scenes. The internships have been exciting too. We have a student right now participating in an internship with First Star Logistics. It's awesome. It's a paid position. And then one of our speakers tonight, you'll hear about participate in our first relaunch of an internship with Miami Township specific to marketing. The third tier, which we're really excited about as well, are pre-apprenticeships. These are under development. We'll have more information for you soon. The pre-apprenticeship program is designed to not only give a heads up on the true apprenticeship, but also potentially help with graduation requirements. We'll talk more about that with the class of 2023 and beyond, but these are experiential learning opportunities that really are designed to give students a heads up with work experiences that they would have in their future. Those right now, we're focused on healthcare, information technology, and manufacturing. because of need. And for students, we see this as a great opportunity, not just to get ahead, but at some point, and for some students, a means by which to get their high school diploma. So with that being said, the highlight for me tonight truly is getting to introduce the students. Up next, I'd love to introduce Nyla Grant to you. She is a junior here at Loveland High School. I met Nyla because she was meeting with her school counselor, Mrs. Lewis, and Mrs. Lewis, gave me the, hey, come on over. You've got to meet Nyla. She's interested in health science, maybe athletic training, maybe physical therapy. And I think you might have an opportunity for her. And I said, absolutely. So she's going to tell you about her experiences with career shadowing. So now please feel free to come on up. So you want to stand there.
Hi,
So Nyla, tell us a little bit first, who did you do your career shadowing with?
I shadowed our Loveland High School athletic trainer, Tara Eisenach.
And what
aren't just people you go to get wrapped or just to get ice. They really care about our athletes and they want to build a connection with us and they really want to support us. And I was grateful to be able to experience that.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was awesome to reestablish that connection too with NovaCare. And that was another partner we had pre-COVID, which was awesome. Up next, we have a senior. His name is Luke Griffin. I got to know Luke when I was serving as a school counselor in a traditional sense, and was so impressed because he had already started asking some of those future-oriented questions. He earns the award for being the first student in Loveland to reach out about experiential learning. And this is in COVID season last year. So he was already thinking ahead. Mr. Mitchell, do you know anything that's happening this summer? I said, Luke, I don't, but we'll find out. And Miami Township rose to the occasion. So Luke, come on up. This is Luke Griffin, senior. So I let the cat out of the bag a little bit. Tell us specifically, who did you work with at Miami Township and a little bit about the role that you had?
So I worked under Will Menz, the head of the media there at Miami Township. And what I did there is I helped sort of with their social media. They had summer camps going on around different parks in Miami Township.
Mhm.
So I would drive out there, I would take photos, I would edit them, and I would post them on social media.
That's awesome. What was it that drew you to want to have an internship with Miami Township or just an internship in general?
So I knew that internships would be really good for experience with hands-on, sort of exploring what I wanted to do as a career. And with Tigers Inc., I took junior year, I was part of the marketing team and I worked with social media as well. And I was like, this is something I would like to explore more in.
Awesome. And what was your greatest takeaway from your experience?
Definitely more of a what a future career in marketing would look like and what sort of like an actual job for me as an adult would also look like in my career.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we're, needless to say, proud of these students. If we could take several, I think, hours, honestly, and allow each of the students who've already participated to talk about their experiences. These two are just dynamite and really do offer a terrific representation of what's happening so far. And we're really excited about what's to come. Budding new partnerships, more and more student experiences, and we can't thank you enough for your support. It means the world to us for sure, and certainly happy to answer any questions.
Well, first, let us thank you for bringing students. We've got more students to talk to in a little bit, and thank you for having them share with us. That's why we do what we do here, is for the students. I do want to apologize to any online audience. I think we moved a couple of computers around while all that was going on, so I don't think they got to see the students as they were speaking, but I do want to remind our online audience that the presentation, the PowerPoint is in board docs, so you can see that. And we actually have thumbnail pictures of Nyla and Luke, so you can at least see who was talking during that time. So thank you. Board members, any questions, comments? Mr. Doherty.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Anybody else have something before? No. Okay, so two quick questions.
Sure.
One is Naviance and our confidence in it being reasonably predictive.
So that's a terrific question. The tools are actually even enhanced this year, and we're getting even more opportunity to use it in an effective manner. So 6 through 12, between each of those grade levels, I was already working with David Knapp as an example in running reports from the beginning of the year, midpoint, and then we'll plan on running another one at the end of the year to gauge students' involvement and how many students, as an example, are researching careers, favoriting careers. So they click on a heart symbol and we can see where they're thinking. I believe that that data has been helpful in then making programming choices. As an example, we saw that there was a great need with healthcare, specifically here in Loveland, and made a conscientious effort towards that. The personalization piece, yes, I think that's where, when we do the interpretation of the career assessments, we're seeing some students who are learning about options that they weren't aware of. And I think that might be the biggest gain for kids, because we only know what we know.
Right.
And they may have heard about accounting, but maybe not aware of actuarial science. That's where Naviance is awesome, because of its links to related careers.
Okay. The reason I ask is
Sure.
we use the tools similar, I'm not familiar with Naviance in particular, but we used tools similar to assess incoming candidates to the company pretty extensively.
Yes.
And found them to be useful.
Yeah.
So the second question is, what do you need? And I'm thinking, I guess, primarily in terms of organizations, companies, whatever, to offer up opportunities. How are you suited for the number of opportunities that you'd like to have in the program?
Yeah. Well, honestly, the first answer that comes to mind, I actually need things to move faster. Like there's so much that we see before our students, and I would love to have like 15 partners right away in regards to opportunities for the next school year. So this is where it gets exciting. I think in terms of need with partners, we're in pretty good shape. We're working with Nick Winenberg, who owns a staffing company, as an example. So I've been able to reach out to him in terms of getting connections quickly. Like, just anecdotally, there was an environmental science question. He quickly put me in touch with an environmental scientist who spoke about career opportunities. So in terms of connections, those are building quickly, but not fast enough. So meaningful experiences for students are what's most important, and it takes time. I'd love to be able to roll out more sooner, but I also don't want to roll out experiences for our kids that haven't been thoroughly vetted. So I think the answer is really, if I could get things moving faster, I'd be happier.
So I guess the question I'm asking, kind of maybe a little specifically, is, do you need help in identifying organizations that would be willing to sponsor internships? Or do you think you've got enough for kind of the period of time that you're focusing on, and you just need to develop what you've got more?
I'll always take more information for sure. But Nick has been great. Claremont County Chamber has been great. CC Collins with Little Miami Chamber, Little Miami River Chamber Alliance. Great. So we've had good help, but if there's more and more people who are interested, I'd be glad to take that help.
Okay. So that's a message to get out to the community, right?
For sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mitchell, I just want to say thank you, and Nyla and Luke for coming in and sharing with us. And I joke with Bruce, I think he has an office in every building, because every building I go into, he's there and he's working with kids. And that's a great thing. And I know you do something, what is it you do at lunch to get the kids interested with exploring?
Career Trivia Tuesday.
There you go.
Yeah. It's amazing what could happen for a Jolly Rancher. So
I'm not surprised, but I appreciate it very much, and the work you do. And Andrea Connor, I know, is leading the way, and we've got other districts that are looking to join us, and that's a good thing for Loveland. So thank you very much. And Nyla and Luke, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Now we have another presentation, Tigers Inc. And who's taking the lead on that one?
I will take the lead on
Mr.
that.
Bravo.
Before I introduce Tigers Inc. and Mr. Murnan, I've got a little information here. Tigers Inc. is a leadership class that actively runs a 501c3 nonprofit organization throughout the school year. The class provides students the ability to learn valuable business and leadership skills in a non-traditional manner. Students learn by doing, and I learned from them in this very room with Loveland U and the great job they did, and just thoroughly enjoyed that evening with everything that they do. The class is designed to learn by experience, from experience. Students are divided into 3 cohorts. You have marketing, wealth management, and community outreach. Students work on projects that support learning in those areas while helping our local and regional business communities. Currently, students in the marketing cohort are working with 5 local small businesses on social media strategies. Our wealth management group actively manages an investment portfolio, the Tiger portfolio. Students work with local financial advisors on implementing a long-term investment strategy using a dollar cost averaging methodology. Students research and execute stock trades throughout the school year. I could probably use a little help with that. Our community outreach cohort is working with the Loveland City Local Government and Parks Board. One of the year's projects is working on the implementation of a dog park within the city of Loveland. Students are actively engaged in leading real projects with real outcomes. This class was started in 2019 with the purpose of providing students the ability to engage in leadership while providing a platform for students to gain experience in an area in which they are passionate. The class reports to a board of directors and handles all the tasks and responsibilities of running a real business. Loveland City Schools was one of the first schools to take this type of approach to business education. The students were recognized in Columbus by the Secretary of State, Frank LaRosa, back in 2020 for their work. In addition, the students became one of the first student groups to manage a real investment portfolio in the entire country. The Young Investors Society recently acknowledged this concept and is seeking to partner with Tigers Inc. in providing a platform to onboard other school systems. In the future, Tigers Inc. strives to continue to seek partners and professionals who can help expand their network, enhance their skills, and provide business expertise. The mission is to enhance the student experience by equipping students at Loveland High School with business and leadership skills that advance them beyond the traditional classroom. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Murnan and the members of Tigers Inc.
I'm going to have my
Hi, my name is Tommy Pruitt, and this year I was a new member of Tigers Inc. Through Tigers Inc., I have had the opportunity to develop and implement social media marketing strategies throughout a various number of businesses and corporations, including our own. I'm currently working on a pop-up shop for RP Diamond, a local clothing store. And I just like to say personally, I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. I don't know what I want to do in college or anything like that. But I truly believe through Tigers Inc., I have developed a certain skill set and assets that I believe will be invaluable to whatever career path job opportunity I'll take on, it being in the business sector or not. I truly believe Tigers Inc. is just an amazing experience that every student should have the opportunity to do. We really learn by experience from experience. I'd like to hand it off to Sean.
So my name is Michaela Loomis. I'm a senior here at Loveland High School, and I'm also have been in Tigers Inc. for 2 years now. My first year, my junior year, was involved with marketing, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the opportunity to get to build my interpersonal skills as well as communication and many other skills through it. But the great thing about Tigers Inc. is the variability within the projects that we get to work on. So I got to work this year. I got to take the opportunity to switch to a new cohort called our wealth management cohort. And I've loved to be able to take what I've used from other courses that I've just learned. I remember sophomore year, I took investing in money management, but having the opportunity this year to take not only that knowledge, but be able to actually see it applied was really a rewarding experience. And I'm excited to see what we take in the future with it. So now I'm going to pass it off to Sean.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sean Coon, and I'd like to address an elephant in the room before we start. These are non-prescription. I just wear them to look more sophisticated and professional so that people will actually listen to me. But with that out of the way, I'd like to get into what I actually want to talk about, and that is my brother. Like many of you, when you first heard about Tigers Inc., you might not have known what it was. I was the same way. I wasn't really sure. And my first exposure to it was my aforementioned brother, Chris. And if I'm being completely honest, I didn't take him all that seriously because I thought he was a huge nerd at the time. I didn't really want to listen to what he had to say.
Thank you. I'm sorry we've lost the video feed for that. We really do appreciate you coming. We wish we could meet each one of you in person one by one, but that would probably make our meeting last till midnight. So we won't do that, but we're very impressed with your 3 representatives who spoke with us. And we'll be very interested to hear how much money you earn by the end of the year. I want to know about that. Are there questions or comments from the board?
I think it's really impressive how well spoken you all are, and I know keep up the good work.
So nicely done, all of you, very nicely done. Those of you that have no idea what the future is going to be for you, you're joining a very big club. Not to be concerned about that. To be concerned about, I think, are the core skills and the experiences that you're gaining right now. You'll find that you can apply them to a number of different walks in life. So good luck to you. Well done. I want to hear more about all this stuff. And I want to see that portfolio return.
I'll come in anytime you want. Have our team share with you. They're pretty proud of what they've done so far over past year.
Okay.
I would like to say to Tommy, Michaela, and Sean, thank you. Did a great job of presenting. I love getting to meet all of you the other night. We had, I believe it's Adeline and Audrey do a video for us so that everybody could see what Tigers Inc. is about. But I think the one person we're forgetting to mention is Mr. Mernan and all the work that he has done. And you don't have programs like this without individuals like Mr. Mernan. And to Craig, I say thank you for all you do for our kids. And kids, thank you very much. Students, thank you very much for being here this evening.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you from all of us. Our online audience ought to be able to see that they're fist bumping with administrators. We're all pretty proud of these young people.
Probably 20 or 30 students, I would think, in the group.
Yeah. Mhm. I will just let board members know that occasionally you get requests from teachers or from groups such as this, and you have an opportunity to participate in some career days, in some interviewing. And if you get that chance, do take them up on that as well. It really is a good way to meet some students and see their great skills that they're learning.
I have participated in some interviews, which was a lot of fun, very interesting. If there's anything I can do to help with that program though, just call.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll find something. That group is, that's what education's all about.
There's a level of maturity in the way they handle themselves, which is to really be respected.
Well, and I think to your point, what we want for all of our kids is to be able to present themselves like that. When you go out into the adult world, that's just as important as anything else, is being able to have those social skills and the emotional intelligence to do what you need to do in front of a crowd. And they do a great job.
Nicely done.
Thank you all. Then we move on to, if you look at board docs and the agenda, you'll see that there are administrator reports. Those are, as usual, attached with board docs, and they are there for board information. And then we will move to student representative reports to the board. And we had one student rep last month. Now we have one this month. So I think they may be tag teaming it a little bit. Nicole, not on purpose. It's okay. That's all right.
Okay, so I'm Nicole and I'm giving our presentation for the LIS, LMS, and LHS reports. So our first note is actually in conjunction a little bit with Tigers Inc. So LMS was excited to begin a new partnership between Loveland High School and Loveland Middle School with Operation Lead. So this was a day-long learning event at LMS led by our Tigers Inc. program, where students taught leadership skills and other soft skills for our 8th grade social studies students in order to help them get excited about careers and become better leaders in their community. And this past week at LMS, we did our fall drama production of Behind the Scenes. 65 students signed up for this production, which featured songs and performances from past LMS plays, as well as a glimpse of behind the scenes of what it takes to pull off a drama production. And with 85% of the students participating not having any prior stage experience, we were really excited that so many people came out to engage. Our 6th grade class recently read A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park. So on October 29th, our 6th graders participated in activities, including a 2-mile walk carrying a jug of water. And we exceeded our goal of raising $6,000 and ended up raising over $10,500. An LIS staff member has sons in the military and stationed overseas, and she asked if some of our students could write letters and collect donations for the servicemen and women with minimal to no family. And she ended up with 250 letters saying thank you and happy holidays, and 7 big boxes of everything from toothbrushes to snacks and playing cards. So thank you to everyone with their efforts on that. And our LIS LMS book fair will be hosted through Friday, which is Friday, November 19th, which is super exciting. I know I loved book fair when I was a kid, so it's fantastic to have that back. And LIS and LMS joined Red Ribbon Week this week. Our students showed support with theme days. We wore red on Monday for We Stand United, Stomp on Drugs, which was Crazy Sock Day, not stock. My future is, I know, all the adults seem more interested in the stock profile. My future is bright, where students wore neon, hats off to good friends, which was Hat Day, and of course Tiger Spirit Day on Friday. We had our typical student and staff accomplishments, and this month we recognized our first group of top-notch Tigers at lunch. For athletics, our girls cross country team were OHSAA Section A champions, and our boys team finished second in their section. Our girls basketball season kicks off on Monday, November 22nd at Kings, and boys basketball gets their start on Tuesday, November 30th at home versus Kings. And wrestling is looking to defend their ECC championship from last year, and their first meet is Friday, December 3rd. And this year, LMS is excited to host a series of Pack the Stands events for each of our teams, including a performance from our cheerleaders to encourage more people to turn out to our LMS athletic events. And we're welcoming Pickles and Bones Restaurant on board as an official sponsor for the LMS halftime shootout. And we're very excited to rebuild the home game environment for our students. Upcoming events for the middle school is Pass It On, the canned food drive on November 19th, Camp Kern for the 5th graders, November 17th through 19th, and our LIS music concerts, December 6th through 8th. And for the high school, we would like to say congratulations to both our girls and boys cross country teams for competing at state this year. The girls cross country team finished second in the state, and the boys team finished 12th. All of our fall athletes were recognized at Fall Sports Awards, and congratulations to all on wonderful seasons. And congratulations to our seniors that signed to play a sport in college this month. Congratulations to our marching band, who received a level 1 superior rating at the OMEA State Championship. Our winter athletic season is starting, and please come out and support all of our winter athletics. Our boys basketball season will kick off November 30th at home versus Aiken. And our Loveland High School drama presented All Together Now on November 12th through 13th at 7 p.m. at the high school. And come check out Leading Ladies on the 19th and 20th, which is our play. And finally, a shout out to our robotics students and again, our Tigers Inc. students for their amazing presentations for Loveland University.
Thanks very much, Nicole. And I'm really happy that you're so happy about books. That makes me happy. Anybody have any questions?
How's your year going?
Senior year, quite a bit.
Yeah, lots of work. Lots of excitement though. And lots of deadlines.
A lot of deadlines.
Thanks,
Just
Nicole.
one question for you. The report that you just gave, do you have that in a format that you can share with us?
Absolutely.
I'd love to see these attached to
Is
minutes.
it what's on Board Docs or is it your own? Because there is a report that's on Board Docs.
Oh, I didn't see that before.
It's a little bit edited.
Okay,
That's fine.
Yeah.
So I can send this to Ms. Dunn.
okay, that's fine. Yeah. What I was going to say was that the pre-K through 4 report is also on Board Docs so that you can check that out, even though we didn't have that reported tonight. So it's under the administrator reports.
Oh. What are you thinking, Eric?
Nicole puts her own spin on those reports, but that's the meat. That's the skeleton on which she hangs the details.
Right. So I some of it definitely sounded familiar
Yeah.
from looking at the admin reports, but you did have more to it. And that's what I was kind of wondering.
Yeah. So, okay, be great if you could send it. Absolutely.
That'd be great.
And it is good to have the students here to talk. And as always, Nicole, you're welcome to stay for the entire meeting. I don't know if I dare say this, it doesn't look like it's going to be a really long meeting, but at any point, if you need to go do homework, I know it's bad luck to say that. But also, if you'd like to stay and we love to hear from you, or if you need to leave because of homework, that also is fine.
This is the one to stay for, so you can say you stayed for the whole thing. That's a lot of pressure on us.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right, then we move to board president report, and obviously chance for any board members to report on anything that they need to as well. I have a very short report. Just wanted to recap communication that has come to the board since the last meeting. Actually, quite a small number of email messages compared to what we've gotten used to. We've had a couple asking questions about the COVID protocols and the masking protocols. And I know that Mr. Broadwater will recap where we are a little later in the meeting. We just had a couple come in today, and both of those were advocating for continuing the mask policy that we have right now. So I just thought I'd report that as what the board has received. We've also received a couple of emails concerning the Planning Commission and their meeting, and I believe the board is trying to get some of that straightened out. I did want to comment, I did have the opportunity to attend Mr. Sean Miller's 50th production last week, the All Together Now. And I was very happy to be included in the event. I'm very happy that people keep track of those kinds of things here in Loveland, that kind of event doesn't go unnoticed. And I think on behalf of the board, I'm very happy that Mr. Broadwater included me to go there, and I thanked him and congratulated him. And I think he was truly moved by being honored that way. I'm not sure he was moved by the questions I asked him, because I did ask him where he got his energy, when he ever slept, and why he doesn't look any older than when he started 25 years ago. So that's what I asked him. No, I told him he didn't have to answer. I didn't want to put him on the spot, but those were questions that plague me sometimes when I look at his energy and the productions that he is able to bring out of our students. They're just wonderful. I do have some Great Oaks materials that I brought this evening. I can share those with you. They're print materials about programs. And I'm glad to see, although we have a small number of students that attend Great Oaks, I'm glad to see that we encourage students to still take advantage of all that Great Oaks has to offer. There's so many programs. It's such an opportunity for some students to start work immediately after school, after graduating from high school, but also the opportunity to continue a program through higher education as well. I do want to alert board members to the following upcoming work, just so you know what you're headed for. December 7th is our last scheduled meeting of the year. It will be a work session. It will include at least one action item. It'll include the first reading of the 2022-2023 school calendar. But most of the work, I think, will be discussion and information, including perhaps superintendent goal review, strategic planning for 2022, talking about communication successes and strategies, and talking about the status of various committees that may include board member representation, including the Planning Commission, and how we move forward in 2022. So it'll be planning, a planning kind of section. As I mentioned before, at that meeting, we will have to say goodbye and thank you to Ms. Pettit for her service to the district. So be ready to shower her with accolades, I think. And then January 4th is proposed. It's coming up as an item right after my report. It's proposed for our organizational meeting. We will welcome one new member, Mr. Eilert, as I mentioned before, and we will swear in 4 members. So I guess I get to swear at 4 people, right? There will be a great variety of organizational items to consider, and we will at that time be setting the dates for the 2022 board meetings. You will get a list of proposed meetings prior to that time, so you'll have a chance to look at them and register any conflicts that you might have so that we can get those meetings set up for the year. So that's my report. Are there any questions from board members or other reports that board members would like to make at this time? I see no over here. Mrs. Washburn? No, this side of the table? See, maybe it will be a short meeting. All right. Okay, sorry. Well, then we'll move on to board resolutions. The first one is a resolution to approve the date for the January board organizational meeting, January 4th, 2022. And I'll make that motion. Is there a second? And Ms. Pettit seconded. Any questions or comments on that? Put it on your calendar.
Mr. Eilert, is that a good date for you?
Thanks, Michelle. All right, Mr. Giuffre, can we vote on that?
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes.
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Mrs. Washburn?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Dr. Schleusner?
Yes.
Motion carried. We then need to elect a president pro tem for the January 4th meeting. This person gets the meeting started as we will elect a board president and board vice president and bring new members into the meeting. So we'll have the swearing in before that, but we need a president pro tem to kind of
Move for Eileen. To be our president.
She did it before. We could
I know.
share. We could have Dr. Swetchnow do it if he would
I
like.
know who's not gonna do it.
I don't think we could have an outside person to do it. So I think there's a motion for Eileen to be president pro tem. Is there a
You're
second? Is
I
it
can-
dying for lack of second?
I can.
No, we won't let that happen.
I can second.
Mrs. Washburn, do you accept the duties of president pro tem?
I do.
All right. Any questions or discussion? Any last minute advice for Mrs. Washburn?
Be prepared.
Be prepared. Be very prepared. Mr. Giuffre, can we vote on that?
Ms. Pettit?
Yes.
Dr. Schleusner?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Dr. Lorenz?
Yes.
Ms. Washburn?
Should I vote now? Yes.
Motion carried.
Congratulations. You have our sympathies.
Congratulations. Thank you. All right, then the next thing that we will do is move into discussion topics and superintendent updates. Mr. Broadwater.
Okay, we will go and get started. Nicole, you with us? You're staying? This will be one of my best ones. All right. Okay, I've got three topics I want to discuss this evening. First is a fall extracurricular review. I wanted to make sure that we kind of recapped what happened over the fall in the extracurricular. And it's also a great exercise for me, being fairly new, to get to know some of our coaches, our athletic directors, our directors, our performing arts. And the more I talked, the more information I got, I realized we do a lot here at Loveland City Schools, and I've got a lot to report out with the extracurricular review. I then am going to do the COVID and the mass policy review, and then a dedication of the LIS gymnasium. So that would be the three topics that I will hit this evening. First, the Loveland Middle School fall extracurriculars. I'm going to start with athletics. Our volleyball, 7th grade volleyball went 20-3, 20 wins, 3 losses, regular season and tournament victors and champs. So they did a great job, had a great year. Our 8th grade had an unbelievable year, went to a couple of their games, and they were 23-0. Anytime you have an undefeated season, that's pretty difficult. But they were also regular season and tournament champs. Our orange volleyball team finished on a high note. They finished the season as ECC invitational runner-ups, and you've got some pictures there to take a look at. But overall, the volleyball season at the middle school was as good as it gets. Cross country, kind of the same deal. The middle school boys and girls cross country teams swept the ECC championships that were held here at the home of the Brave Park. which is a big accomplishment for those kids. The young ladies, the girls, went to the OHSA Cross Country Championship, and the young ladies are Section A champions. There's a group of young ladies, they ran away with the championship by beating the second place team by 44 points. And our boys also did very, very well as they went through that tournament. For our cheerleaders, the middle school cheer teams had a great season. I think if you look at the theme through all of these, everybody, all the kids and the coaches were excited we were in person. They were just excited. They got back to a normal year. And with the girls cheerleader, the one accomplishment that we have down there is they had a pink out with the cheer teams for the Pink Out Breast Cancer Awareness theme and the Pink Ribbon Girls Organization, which is obviously a great thing for our cheerleaders to do. Football, 7th grade, we had 34 athletes out, which is obviously the huge focus when you're talking about 7th grade football. And they ended the season with a big win over Nagel Blue, which is one of their rivals. 8th grade football went 6-2, and the last minute loss is one of the losses they had, and they continued to improve. And we will see them at the high school next year. For middle school performing arts, I'm talking to Ms. Birkin with orchestra. 7th and 8th grade orchestras are strong with 40 students in each, which is obviously a big deal, making sure we have kids interested. And Mrs. Birkin does a phenomenal job with the orchestra and just does a great job with the kids. I've been able to pop in to her classroom a couple times, and the kids sound like they've been playing for years. They sound very, very good. They are working on new music and new skills, and they're going to be going through the winter season at various places in the community. Everybody loves an orchestra, and they love when the orchestra shows up. So our kids do a great job with that. Jill Stagg, our choir, on November 9th, the 7th and 8th grade choirs presented their first concert of the year. 7th grade sang songs of peace, patriotism, friendship, and strength. 8th grade focused on what they want the world to be in the future. With Miss Stagg, I know she is very, very happy with how they are progressing. Chris Huning with band, the 8th grade band had a very successful performance at the 8th grade music night at the Loveland High School football game in September. Both the 7th, 8th grade bands are working hard to prepare for their first concert coming up at the end of this month. And we'll now move to Loveland High School. And we're going to start with our performing arts. The picture there is Dr. Lorenz giving Mr. Miller the little plaque that we had made for his 50th production. And to know Mr. Miller is to know that his heart's in the right place with kids and all the work that he does. They did All Together Now is the show that Dr. Lorenz and I got to see on Friday evening. It was a musical that was a global event with 4,800 other theater companies performing the past weekend across the globe. And I was not aware of that. I think that's pretty neat. Choir had an October concert. December 11th is the next performance. Show choirs are practicing for their spring competitive season. A cappella performing December 4th for the Loveland tree lighting. And I know they're going to be around the community as well. And Leading Ladies is the show this weekend. For orchestra, we have 2 orchestras. This Miss Birkin again, 2 orchestras have 100 students. Chamber Orchestra performed Benjamin Britten's Simple Symphony along with the Sound of Music, along with the String Orchestra, currently working on pieces to be performed in December concerts and around the Loveland community. And I've got students listed here with major accomplishments. A student, Brody Mertz, selected for the Cincinnati Symphony Youth Orchestra. If you know anything about the Symphony Youth Orchestra, that's a very difficult thing to accomplish. A student, Noah Elliott, selected for Cincinnati Junior Strings through the University of Cincinnati CCM Preparatory Department. Again, a big accomplishment. And 2 students, Natalie Hutchinson and Evan Smith, selected to perform with Northern Kentucky Youth Orchestra. So we're very proud of our orchestra program, everything Mrs. Birkin does with our students. For band, the Loveland High School Marching Band returned to the football field with an entertaining and family-centric halftime show entitled An 80s Adventure. And for me, the number of band shows I was able to see, I was able to get over to Kings and see their competition. And 80s music is my wheelhouse, so I enjoyed it very much. And they did a great job. The kids are just so positive. Jeff Miller does a great job with the kids and being able to talk to them and understand the passion they have for what they do. It's everything that's good about high school. And kudos to Mr. Miller. They had competitions starting in September, able to win the Outstanding Percussion Award at the Taylor Invitational, hosted a competition here at the beginning of October where we received a 1, which is a superior rating, and it qualified Loveland Marching Band for the OMEA State Marching Band Competition, where the band received a 1. So congratulations to them. This past weekend, I was able to go to this final competition. I didn't see one mistake, and I was sad that it was over. It was so entertaining. The kids did a great job. They had bicycles out there. They had all sorts of good music, and it was very, very entertaining. The Wind Ensemble and Symphonic Band performed a concert in October, as well as the jazz bands. For athletics, just kind of hit some of the awards and highlights. The Eastern Cincinnati Conference Awards, the ECC Awards, we had 19 athletes in the fall make first team all ECC, 16 of our athletes, second team all ECC, 10 of our athletes EC honorable mention. So altogether, we had 45 students there that were able to garnish awards. ECC Player of the Year, which obviously is a big deal. Girls soccer, Abby Polakowski, and for girls soccer and girls runner, Emmy Sager. Did a great job as players of the year. ECC team champions, girls soccer, girls cross country, and boys cross country were our ECC team champions. For cheerleading, the fall cheer, they've had a wonderful season, and the biggest thing, kind of the theme we see with everything, they were excited that they had a full Tiger Stadium, and they got to cheer to real people in the stands. And if you went to any of our football games, the stands were packed, the kids were fired up, and the cheerleaders have a lot to do with that. They went to a camp this summer and received the leadership award, and they were also able to bring home the coveted Spirit Banana back to Loveland. I think that means most spirited cheerleading group that was at camp. That's what I'm going to say.
That's true.
Thank you. For ECC Coach of the Year, Steve Nestor had a pretty good year. Our cross country did pretty well. Boys cross country and girls cross country. Mr. Nestor, Coach Nestor, was the Coach of the Year for both of those. For OHSA postseason results, boys golf, OHSA regional qualifier was Joe Janikowski. Girls soccer, we were OHSA sectional champs and district runner-ups. For boys cross country, we were OHSA runner-up, 4th place in the regionals, 12th place in state, which is a large accomplishment. Girls cross country, OHSA district champs, regional champs, and state runner-up. They came in second and had a fantastic year. I will tell you, I believe there were only 3 districts in Division I that had both girls and boys cross country at the state tournament. So it's a big accomplishment. Obviously, why Coach Nestor had a great year, and our kids did as well. The ECC All Sports Trophy standings, we are currently in 2nd place for the ECC All Sports Trophy. That is where they tally points for where you place in all of the different athletic events. And at the end of the year, there is an All Sports Trophy for ECC. I'm not going to read off all these names. They are there, but this is why we have student athletes. This is the ECC All Academic Awards for the fall of 2021. Varsity participant, you had to letter as a varsity participant, have a 3.5 GPA or higher for the first quarter. And going through that, girls tennis, we had 10 of our students. Fall cheer was 12, girls golf was 8, boys soccer was 14, girls volleyball was 14, boys golf was 4. Football, we had 18. Girls soccer, we had 15. Boys cross country, we had 20. Girls cross country, we had 17. Altogether, we had 133 ECC All Academic Award winners. And again, that's what it means to be a student athlete, is to make sure that you're taking care of what needs to be done in the classroom. So congratulations to every single student that we have on this list. And you can see it was a very active fall in our extracurriculars. I tried to get through it, but also give time so that our kids and coaches could be recognized. So congratulations to all. Any questions before we move on?
You want to take a breath?
No, we're good. Nicole, you hanging in there? Doing okay? All right. So we're going to move on to the COVID and our mask policy. I've received a few emails, and I know we're getting closer and closer. Each meeting we try and discuss this. I want to land on where we are right now. If you recall, every meeting we've kind of given out these 3-tiered decision frameworks. The cases reach an acceptable level. I will tell you that's my main concern right now. The vaccine for the younger students becomes available. It's there, and it is available. Ohio Department of Health, Hamilton County Public Health adjusts the quarantine guidelines They have done that. They've made them to where I believe we can keep kids in school at a much higher rate. And so 2 of the 3, we are there. The transmission rate is what I'm concerned about right now. So as my team sits down and we take a look at this, and every day we're discussing where we are. On Fridays, I sit down with Hamilton County Public Health along with other superintendents in the area. This is a chart that I've used over and over and over again that I look at. The unfortunate thing is, if you look at Hamilton County, Claremont County, and Warren County, you can see that the transmission has taken an uptick. It's gone up. The hope was it was going to decrease, but it has moved up a little bit, and that is a concern. That is our main concern. After that, this past week, the dashboard, we had 11 total student positives, which is the highest number we've had since, I believe, mid-September. So that's a concern. The good news is the 80 students self-monitoring, they're able to stay in class if they're wearing a mask. The 2 close contacts that are quarantined, they don't have to do that, but I believe it's families that are wishing to decide on caution and keeping their children out. And so we've got them listed as quarantine. But altogether, we have 11 positives, which is concerning. That's the most we've had in a while. So the next slide, what I did ask Kevin Leamy, who does all of our statistics, I asked him to take a look at last December and where we are right now as we move into December. The reason I did that is I could recall in December in the district I was at, there was a huge uptick, and in Loveland, it is the case when I see here. And so the concern we have right now is the transmission is moving in the wrong direction. The good news is we do have the vaccines available for our younger kids. So with all of that, the slides that I've just showed you, it really is what we look at with the decision framework, along with the medical advisory board. Every Friday we meet and discuss kind of where we are. So looking at everything, I do want to let our parents know and our community know the goal is to get to mask optional. That's the goal. We would like our families to have the option. We have said all along, we want to be able to keep our kids in school. And I think we have done a fantastic job. We've been very fortunate. If you look at some of the metrics of other school districts, we had an individual do that for us and look at the other metrics. And Loveland has been very fortunate. We've done very well, thanks to Mr. Ames, Mr. Coles, and our nursing staff and our health aides and everybody working to make sure we're doing the right things for kids. So the timeline right now as it stands, last week was the first full week for vaccination for ages 5 through 11. This week is the second week. I do know that I've heard from some parents where it is difficult to get an appointment. And so they're working to make sure they're getting appointments for their child to get vaccinated. So we want to allow time for that. If you look at a couple weeks later, November 29th through December 3rd, that is when the first full week, those kids, if they got vaccinated, would be able to get their second vaccination. December 6th through 10th would be the other week. They would be able to get their second vaccination. And as you know, once you get the second vaccination, the idea is after 2 weeks, they would be fully immunized. They would be fully vaccinated. So December 13th through 17th, our first group, the November 8th through 12th, if they were fortunate enough to get in to get the vaccines, if they wanted them, they would be fully vaccinated. That is the last week of school before winter break. The good news is over winter break, the other week, if your child was vaccinated November 15th through 19th, that extra week for winter break would allow them to be fully immunized as well. So having said that, January 3rd is where we would look for the first day back from winter break, and Loveland City Schools would return to mask optional. That is where we are right now. That is my thinking right now. There's another train of thought that would say wait a week or two after the kiddos get back from winter break, since they're going to be with the families. At this point, I would like to go mask optional. I would encourage families, the last bullet there, encourage families to be diligent about monitoring their child and keeping them home if they're ill or if they were exposed over winter break. And we're still going to maintain the mask to stay, test to play as we come back. So right now, where I believe we will be December 7th, we have another board meeting and I will confirm. The only thing that I think makes this tentative is unfortunately the transmission is moving up. The hope would be that it stays where it's at and starts to move back down. But right now, the goal would be January 3rd to return to mask optional for our K through 6 students, since they are able to receive the vaccine. For the pre-K students, we are still looking at what we will do with that. That's going to be another discussion because those kids are 4 years old. They're not available for the vaccine. So we are going to be discussing that. If we move to mask optional for our students, our staff would return the same way. They would be mask optional as well in the K through 12 grades. So with that, I will open up to any questions that you may have on the mask policy.
Mike, just to reemphasize, what you've got here is not the plan, it's what your thinking is.
Yes.
We're not telling everybody that this is what's going to happen. You're hoping that this is what will happen, but the situation in the buildings and the community will really drive what decisions you ultimately take, right?
Correct. I think, yes, thank you. I think it's only fair to tell our community and our parents what we're thinking. And this is what we're thinking. If the transmission had gone down, we were looking forward to do mask optional earlier. It's just not there. I think the emails I've received from parents, either side of masking, they've been very, very thoughtful, and they've thought along these lines as well. And so I think as a community and as students, I think it's my responsibility to let the community know what we're thinking in regards to that timeline. I really am optimistic, but that's where we're going to be. But I did put the word tentative because the transmission, I hope it does not get high. Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question on a different topic, if that's okay, if everybody's done with this one.
Is that the end
I've
of
got
your
one
report?
last slide.
Why don't you do your one last slide?
Okay.
We'll see if you cover it.
All right. So the last slide is the naming of the Loveland Intermediate School Gymnasium to the Stan McCoy Junior Gymnasium. Stan McCoy Jr., Coach McCoy, is a graduate of Loveland Schools in 1973. He was hired in 1989 at Loveland Schools. His years of service are 1989 to 2020. If you remember, Stan was also the parade marshal in our parade recently. He was a physical education health teacher at Lloyd Mann Elementary, Loveland Miami Elementary, Loveland Hurst Middle School, and Loveland Intermediate School. He coached football, basketball, and track at Loveland High School and Loveland Middle School throughout his career. If you've coached to do 3 seasons for 30 some years, you know how monumental that is. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of time with kids. And that's just a lot of relationships built up. If you know Stan, when he walks through Loveland, everybody knows Stan McCoy, and he's just a genuine person. And he is a member of the Loveland High School Athletic Hall of Fame. And we are excited to name the Loveland Intermediate School Gymnasium to the Stan McCoy Junior Gymnasium. If you are not aware, the Loveland Middle School Gymnasium is named after Stan McCoy Sr., his father. And so it's fitting, I think, to a person when you ask them about Stan McCoy, if their child played for them or had him in class, they are very, very complimentary of Stan. And he's just been a great example of what coaching at Loveland means and teaching at Loveland. So, Garth, did I leave anything out?
No, just that I was able to talk to Stan today and to let him know that it was going to be mentioned in Mike's report tonight. And we let him know that the date that we're looking at for him and his family to be honored at the kind of like unveiling of the naming of the gym. He obviously is very appreciative. And he is just a great person. So I know that many of you know who he is and what kind of person he is, but just like I only met his dad once, and that was very early in my career. But Stan Sr. and Stan Jr. Have the same qualities. And I'm super excited to be able to participate in the naming of the LIS gym to stand Coach McCoy. So,
And we're thinking December 13th is the date.
that's correct. Yeah, there's a middle school basketball game happening that afternoon, and that's the date that we're looking at, the 13th of December, for Stan and his family to come, and of course, we'll be there to honor him.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
And
Thank
that
you.
ends my report.
I will just, before I let Mr. Doherty make his question, ask his question, I just wanted to remind board members that we do have a policy about using plaques for people who have brought honor to Loveland schools. And so that's, appropriate with our policy. Just in case anybody was looking at the Lloyd Mann Elementary and the Loveland Hurst Middle School, both of those gentlemen, both Lloyd Mann and Lincoln Hurst, have plaques in those buildings. When we moved from having buildings named after people, we moved to Loveland High School, Loveland Intermediate School, Loveland Middle School. And so there are plaques at LECC for Lloyd Mann and a plaque here. It was actually the Loveland Hurst High School first when it was here, and then became the Loveland Hurst Middle School. And it was Lincoln Hurst who was honored that way with a plaque. So just wanted to remind board members that that's been the protocol for Loveland. Mr. Doherty, you said you had a question.
Yeah, Mike, I sent you a couple of questions by email earlier. If you're not prepared to address them tonight, I'm okay if you want to bring it in December, whatever you want to do.
We had discussed the professional development question was the first question. And I asked Andrea if she could possibly speak on it. I knew some of the professional development, but I can also say with COVID and with everything that's going on, the number of teachers that are taken out of our classes for professional development has been pretty minimal this year. But I'll let Andrea, if you have anything that you would like to input.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that the professional development that we're engaging in this year is.
Andrea,
work
I'm
that we-
sorry. Let me just, for the benefit of the other board members, I had just raised the question because in the admin reports, we had started talking about PD for teachers, and I had asked to just take a minute to talk about what kinds of PD the teachers are actually going through, and maybe keep us updated on that going forward.
So currently we've contracted with the Hamilton County ESC, and we are receiving coaching supports with consultants from the county for our Being a Reader piloting program from the kindergarten through second grade. So that's been ongoing. So the coach will come in and meet with teachers from those grade levels, and as they're going through the piloting process to determine if it's a program that we may want to eventually fully implement and purchase. We're also receiving support from Hamilton County ESC in writing. So primarily the support that we're receiving is work that we're bringing in and that we're doing on those professional development days, the days that are in our approved calendar. Right now, and I'm sure Mr. Collier could speak to this, but we have, subs. Finding subs is a challenge. So quite honestly, not very many of our staff are leaving to attend PD off campus. We are kind of going with the model of bringing that in to support some of the goals and the work that we're doing right now. It's just very difficult to find coverage for classes when our teachers are out. So yeah, that's where we are with it.
Thank you.
And then the other question you had was about the teacher evaluation system.
Correct.
Garth, if you'd like to jump in, you can. But the question was, let's make sure. The performance data being summarized with teacher evaluations. There's the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System, which we go throughout the year, and our principals, administrators are going through that as we go through the year. They end up with a rating through the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System. And your question was, would it be appropriate to have an idea of where our staff lands at the end of the year versus there's accomplished skill developing? And if I understand you correct, that's kind of what you were asking.
Again, forgive me for my background is, what we'd really call performance development discussions and performance ratings and things like that, and an expectation that in any workforce population, you're going to have folks that exceed your expectations. You're going to have a whole lot of folks that probably are meeting your expectations, and then you're likely to have some folks that aren't meeting your expectations. And the question was really, do we look at the staff in that kind of a sense at all? Could we look at the staff in that kind of a sense?
Yeah, so looking at a staff holistically and looking at the ratings, and absolutely we can. When you look at the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System, there was OTES 1.0. We are finished with that. We're moving to OTES 2.0, which allows the administrator and the staff member to have more conversation about setting goals and what goals they would like to set. And so it might be a further discussion with the board to determine exactly what it is that you would want that to look like. But there's the data is readily available. Sure. Yeah.
Okay,
Mr.
so
Broadwater, something to add real
Yes.
quick. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Doherty, is that that information is a part of the typical Ohio report card. So that is something that now our report card over the past couple of years has been a little different because of COVID. But in terms of a typical report card, and the report card also is getting a revamp again on what that's going to look like. But what I can tell you is, yes, we are aware of that data. It has been in the typical report card, something that is available to view, but maybe something that I can do is at the end of this year, as kind of like a look at this past school year, I can maybe, because the data from this year would be being populated for the next school year. What I could do is tell you when we wrap up our evaluation season here for our teaching staff for this year, I can maybe report out at a board meeting so you would be able to see what it is that you can anticipate to be on the report card for that following year.
right. So I mean, just to be clear about it, the kind of thing that had in my head was a histogram of, the population and performances.
Yeah.
So if you're able to do something like that, I think that would be enlightening.
Yeah, it'll come in the form of there's 4 categories: ineffective, developing, skilled, and accomplished. The overwhelming majority of teachers, this is not just Loveland, but across the state, is in the skilled area. And it's a little bit of a bell curve, but it leans a little bit more towards the right because there's only the 4 sections. But yes, I am able to give you that info, and that is something that we look at, looking at where we're performing and how our teachers performing on that rubric. It's pretty detailed and in depth. A teacher would be able to speak to it, and of course somebody like myself would be able to speak to you about the kinds of things that we're looking for when we're observing teachers, and what their work for the year is and how they prove how effective they are.
So just recap for me, when would we see that kind of information calendar wise?
It would probably, if at the end of the year, it would be something I would probably be reporting out at the very beginning of the summer. We end evaluations in May. So it would be me taking a look at, as soon as those are closed in May, possibly a June or a July time, depending upon when we have those board meetings over the summer. At the latest, it would be the very beginning and the fall of the next year. I'd be able to tell you a recap of where we were at the past year.
Thank you. Would it be okay with the board if I added it to the open issues list so we have it to look at next year?
And remind us, because I know that there's just a change to OTES 2. Was that last year?
That is new for us this year.
Okay.
Different districts across the state, depending upon what year you started, and that had to do with negotiated agreements. Ours was starting OTES 2.0 in the OES system, which is new for us. This is our first year using that system.
And I know that you're as new to this job as I am, although you have much deeper history than I do. Did we typically compare year over year results with OTES 1? Or was it kind of kept in isolation from year to year?
As a building principal at the intermediate school, it was something that I looked at. I wouldn't be able to speak to each other building principal. I can tell you that Mr. Ogden, the person who was in this chair previous to me, it was something that I know that he looked at, and it's something that was a part of the information that he kind of left for me of like, hey, make sure to keep an eye on these types of things. It was something listed for me to continue. So I know it's something that I'm wanting to make sure to continue as we move forward.
And obviously, you know this much better than we do, but are you going to have challenges comparing an apple to an orange?
Yeah, the rubric for OTES 1.0 and the rubric for 2.0, there are some changes. The biggest overall change would be, Dr. Schwetzenau, is that in OTES 1.0, so let's call it, quote, the old system, that student growth was 50% of the evaluation, and then the other 50% would have been through observations from the administrator with the teacher was the other 50%. So depending upon if you were a teacher who had an end of course exam, or you were a teacher who gave a state test, like if you were a 3rd through 8th grade teacher for math or for reading, that would be your data that we would be using for that. All the other teachers that don't teach that end of course exam, or they don't teach, or they didn't teach one of those tested subjects, then they would have something that was called an SLO. So it was basically a way for them to measure their students' growth without a state approved version. And so in essence, the new 2.0, the student data is just a part of the rubric. It's not 50% of their evaluation is probably the biggest change. So there is going to be, I feel like, a change in that how we see results from compared to 2.0 from 1.0, with that being the main driver reason that the data might look different.
I look forward to hearing your report.
All right, great.
So again, is everybody okay if I add it to the open issues?
I actually am not necessarily okay, but it's if the board wants to. I thought that the board open issues report was things that the board was committing to do. So we had certain committees that we, pro tem committee that we established. We said that we would have reports on what we did with certain policies. My preference would be if the board is interested, because when we get this report, it's not going to engender board action. This is a report that the board would have from the administration. My preference would be that we do something that we had previously, which was have a year's calendar of when we receive what kinds of reports. So in January, we do the organizational meeting, and I don't know that it needs to be on the website, but rather than making this report from the administration a board open issue, I would prefer that we let the administration know that we'd like a report on X, and they tell us when they can give us that report, and we like a report on Y, and they tell us when they can give us that. But again, if the board wants this.
Well, that's perfectly fine. I think Kevin's point was, how do we make sure that we remember that in 9 months?
That's exactly it. So we could.
We tell them they have to remember it.
Yeah,
right,
I find that sometimes works. And I'd like something a little more reliable than sometimes. And that's not,
Right.
saying anything negative.
Things
It's just
come
human
up.
nature.
Things come up that we have to do.
Stuff
So-
happens.
But again, my preference would be if we're interested in that we keep some kind of calendar, and maybe we actually in January look at this calendar that says January is when we hear about this, April is when we do teacher contracts.
So to that point, we are working on that. Julie Dunn is working on that, getting us the rhythm of that. What I would also like to do is grab, just like Andrea did the other month with teaching and learning, I would like to grab separate months where Garth is going to possibly in January have an HR report. Jesse Coles, John Ames have different months where each department reports out, and they all have action plans. So part of the action plan, we can put the histogram on there about teacher evaluation, and that way it's there and it's in the rhythm and we don't lose it.
So I might be a little bit of a nit on this, but would we be okay with putting on the open issues list requiring the district to produce such a calendar?
That's fine with me. That's one we can check off easily in January, right?
That'd be fine by me too.
Then in January, we could also see that calendar and it would be an opportunity for board members to say, yes, we see this and here's what we envision hearing in that report, that kind of thing. So.
Right.
Didn't we start something like that a few years ago?
You're going to make me go back to the old days. We used to have, instead of board docs and instead of technology, we had a notebook. And in the beginning of the notebook, it had the things that we were going to do in January, the things we needed to do in February. And then we had tabs and we put our agendas in there and you had the whole year in the notebook. So I'm envisioning that without the notebook.
So I'll put a draft of something along that line onto the open issues list and the board can take a look at it and see if it makes sense or doesn't, needs to be modified, whatever. Okay.
Do I see nods from the rest of the board?
Sure.
The goal would be by the January board meeting, we would have that calendar to get started with.
Mr. Eilert, how would you like that?
Now,
Okay,
I
do you have a
didn't, I didn't call him out, so you'd put him on the spot. He doesn't get put on the spot quite yet. So.
Coming.
Okay, thank you. Have we completed what Mr. Broadwater, you'd like to report to us? And have we caught all the questions or comments for Mr. Broadwater? All right, then we'll move on to treasurer. And we noticed that there are no superintendent resolutions this evening. Good job moving the meeting along, Mr. Superintendent. So we move to treasurer resolutions. Mr. Giuffre, would you prefer to, do you have any report that you'd like to give us before we move into those resolutions? Or should we do each resolution as it comes? Okay, thank you. So then first I would need a motion to approve the financial reports for October 2021.
Second.
Ms. Pettit moved and Mr. Doherty seconded. Report on anything, Mr. Giuffre, or just open for questions? These are our regular monthly financial reports. Questions, comments?
Rob, I apologize. I haven't asked you this before. I have asked your predecessor this. If you're not prepared to answer it tonight, that's fine. And I'd appreciate an answer in a subsequent meeting. But the board knows I've always been uncomfortable signing things like the check register, et cetera. Don't need to go into a lot of reasons for that, but when you put something in front of me that asks me to approve something like that, I'm going to want to look at it and I'm going to want to understand it, et cetera. And it's like an effort in it's just a futile effort because there are dozens, if not hundreds, of payees and who knows for what reason, et cetera. So I can't make really any determination of anything that's on there. And Kevin helped me, your predecessor, Kevin, helped me get more comfortable with the process because I had understood we had software that helped screen for problems in the payment process. I'm familiar with some of that stuff from the corporate world. I just want to make sure that we have something like that in place. Again, if you're not prepared to discuss that tonight, that's fine. I just ask you to look at it going forward.
I'm not a fan of it. It's not genuinely forensic accounting audit software.
Okay.
It's EBOS. I've not paid the invoice yet for that, but it is a 5-year contract, so we're obligated for 1 more year. But I've never been a fan of it because I think that it gives people a false sense of security, and it is my responsibility to make sure that everything in the check register is the way it's supposed to be. We do that with our processes. We have requisition, purchase order, payment process, and the administrators who oversee their budgets and supervisors are responsible for their area of expertise, and we rely upon them to make sure that their expenditures are approved for appropriate purposes. But as far as catching fraud, the software that's solicited throughout the state, I've never been a fan of because it's not truly forensic accounting software.
All right. Thank you for a candid answer on that. And with that answer, may I ask you to add this to a finance committee agenda so we could review the topic in a little more detail?
And
teed up.
Yep. Well, and then the final question becomes, why are we doing this? And what is our responsibility? Because clearly we don't have the capability to have any understanding of what much of that report means.
So once a year, we get a very thorough examination from the state's office. They pull 60 substantive tests for federal programs and for all others. This software, and my passion about it is because when the software is being developed, I've been around long enough. They came to group treasurer and said, well, if we get 10 of you, it'll be this cost. If we get 20 of you, we'll get this cost. So it was basically being developed on the fly, and it's just not forensic kind of software. The value of it, the cost is somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,200 a year. And we prefer to continue to use it.
So I'm not suggesting
No,
that. I'm
and that's-
really where Eric is,
Right.
Which is, we're being asked
I got
regularly
that.
to approve these reports. And it's
Just that you've seen
essentially a
them.
rubber stamp, and that doesn't feel good.
It's not that you're approving what is in the report. You're approving that you've seen it, it's been presented to you, and that it is what I'm saying has happened and transpired in the past period. And the way you know that is because you have a reconciliation, a bank reconciliation. And that bank reconciliation is proof that what's in the bank and what's on the book match. And so it's not the responsibility of the board member for each transaction to be approved in this process.
Are there state or are there regulations about what a board needs to approve in these financial?
I was
reports?
thinking that'd be great conversation for next month, especially as we look at the organizational meeting.
Great.
Yeah.
I'd be very happy if we didn't have to approve something like this.
That makes 5 of us.
I'm not a
So-
fan of bringing a check register forward, but if it's been a practice in the past, then it's perfectly fine. But we can have that conversation, finance committee meeting and for next month. That'd be a great topic of conversation. What do you want to see? Because
Yeah.
I think we saw some things tonight that probably would be better presented. And I have some other ideas I'd like to share with you. Now that you've seen this forecast, then going forward, I have a couple things that I think would be at a more appropriate level for the board.
Okay, I'm good with that. You'll take care of that then.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm. Got a
All
motion and a
right, Any
second.
other questions? All right, Mr. Giuffre, can we vote on those?
Ms. Pettit,
Yes.
Mr. Darty,
Yes.
Dr. Lorenz,
Yes,
Dr. Schwetcheno,
Yes.
Ms. Washburn.
even though we don't like it. We understand what you said and we are voting on what you presented to us, that we saw it and we reviewed it.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. The next item is a motion to approve the fiscal 2022 November forecast, 5-year forecast. Ms. Pettit moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Now, questions. I will report that there have been actually 2 presentations of this forecast, correct? There was a presentation made to the Planning Commission, Finance Committee.
Just the state formula. They were interested
Okay,
in.
they
what
saw the
changed.
state
Mhm.
formula, and then this evening
Was way more.
to the Business Advisory Committee, there was a presentation, and a couple board members were able to be there, but the 5-year forecast is on board docs.
Mhm.
And so before we go any further, do you have anything to add, Mr. Giuffre, for this evening?
Just that we'll be looking at it a lot in regards to our cash flow now, and that it will also be part of the presentation for the budget hearing, which is a formal compliance requirement on an annual basis in January before the organization meeting. So other than that, no, I don't.
All right, board member questions or discussion? Anything that you saw in the board docs materials or anything that you wish to bring forward? I see Mr. Doherty ready.
Yeah, I'm going to surprise you and just say, Rob, I've sent you a number of questions or observations about material in the 5-year forecast, and I'm comfortable with your answers. I don't know that there, unless you thought there was some purpose in airing out some of those questions and answers here as part of the board meeting. I don't think there necessarily is, but I would urge the public take a close look at the forecast. And if there are things that don't seem to make sense, I've had enough interaction with Rob now to know that there's a reason if it doesn't look right. there is some logic underneath that may be a little harder to get to. But I think the real purpose of the forecast is to give us a sense of our current financial picture, and gives us some view going down the road of when our financial situation might in fact change. And I think that's coming as I read the data. It's coming. It's not tomorrow. It's a little bit down the road. And I think good, deep conversations about two things. One is how we're spending the taxpayers' money, how effectively we're spending it. And Mike's done some pretty interesting reports on what I think of as our education ROI in this district. And I think there's a good story to tell there, but that needs to be told more and more and more as you go forward. And then, I guess when we have the budget discussion, we'll maybe have a chance to look a little bit more closely at how dollars are being spent and whether we have any concerns about that. I don't at this point in time. It seems to be pretty well managed. And then ultimately, we're going to end up in a conversation about the next round of financing for the district. I'm not sure when that's going to be. As I said, I can see it coming in the data. How we do that, when we do it, all that is another conversation to be had down the road. But I think airing this out in as much detail as possible is a good thing. And I thank you for having the earlier meeting where the public was invited to listen in, but the deck is out there on board docs for folks to see right now.
It's a great tool for communication between the board, the community administration, the continuity of it, and the contemporaneous management of the cash flow. I do want to thank the Finance Committee from the Planning Commission for inviting us to come and share with them the new state funding model. I can count on one hand the number of invitations I've had to do that, but their input was so valuable because, their questions and their input, and then in that conversation, just their willingness to help with the messaging regarding our finances and that forecast. So, no surprises, as I said tonight, and then the biggest difference in our forecast from May to now are the two people presenting it. So it'll be it'll be in front of all of us as we go forward. It's very helpful.
The thing I would echo is the Planning Commission. We've met with them and presented. They're extremely knowledgeable. They put a lot of work into everything that is going on here, and I'm very appreciative that we had the opportunity to do it this evening. Same idea. I think for me in my first year with Rob, getting to know people, building those relationships, knowing the people in the community. I think it's important that we look at where are we going, and that's a strategic vision process, and when do we want to start that. But what is it the community wants from the schools? That should have a lot to do with what we're doing. What do they want for their kids? What educational programs do they want for their kids? And that drives a lot of the decisions as well. And it's important that they have the input. And so we're going to look at moving towards that in the spring. And what that's going to look like. But I think it's important that we have a vision, a plan of where we're going, as well as tied into the finances of the district. So,
and I would just add despite our incredibly careful stewardship of funds and the monies that we've received that we weren't expecting, we are in an expenses greater than revenue model now, and our financial situation will only deteriorate as far as cash balance. Rob, can you just comment, and I'm not sure that you and I have ever talked about this. I know what the previous treasurer's feeling was, but at what point in time does our cash balance fall below a critical level for maintaining operations?
Well, the moment that revenues are under expenditures, we have to start thinking about what we're going to do, because we're the only ones that can do something about it. And then in addition to that, I shared tonight that the Department of Education has criteria that's color coded, right, so that when you get to a certain point, if you're not paying attention to it, they certainly will be. But this is a break even, cross the line year. And so I think it's time to begin, as Kevin alluded to, looking at it and starting to make some judgments and decisions going forward. So we can begin that, and in conjunction with Mike's plan to put a vision together so that those are tied together, so folks know how those are related. But we're at a point where we really need to take a look at it and start making some decisions.
Eric, you raise an important question here. We're what I think of as deficit spending now, roughly. And something I didn't think a lot about before was the rate of acceleration in deficits going out into the future. I heard this from a bunch of other school districts last week. I heard Rob talk about it earlier tonight, and it finally occurred to me that it's a compounding problem. You know, our wages increase by X percent in 1 year. Next year, it's that percent plus another percent. So the problem when you're in deficit spending begins to accelerate each year. It's not an equal increment year over year.
Right.
So you have to kind of accelerate your efforts in dealing with it as well. But the timing on that, I think, is still a little bit of an art for us to sort through.
Well said.
Anything else on the forecast? All right, then, Mr. Giuffre, can we vote on that?
Ms. Pettit,
Yes.
Mr. Darty,
Yes.
Dr. Swetchnow,
Yes.
Ms. Washburn, Dr. Lorenz.
Yes, motion carried. The next item is a motion to accept the bid of Seifert Building Company or Seaforth Building Company for $225,600 from the attached bid tabulation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Dr. Swetchnow and Ms. Pettit moved. And before I ask for discussion, I'll ask Mr. Ames if he can just remind us exactly what that, we have the bid and we have the bid tabulation. Can you remind us what work is going to be done with that money?
Certainly. So in the primary school, there is an area that is the size of a full classroom. And during its history, it has been a boys' locker room. When that school must have had at least middle school students. And then when it became an elementary school, that room received a boiler which heated that entire building. 10 years ago, that boiler, or longer, that boiler was removed, and that room has just sat since that time. It's collected a lot of materials. It's been a storage room. It's been everything else. There is a desperate need in that facility for a room to deal with the needs of some of our special students, and it will have all of the requirements to work with those children. It will have a nice bathroom with the items that are needed for the children, and it will have the different equipment that children do need. The teachers are ecstatic about having a facility for their children. There is nothing in that building right now that serves all the needs for our children. So if it's approved, we will start the work over the holiday. It will give us a chance to knock out the old shower rooms, jackhammer the floor out when there's no children there. And then once that is done, the kids are back in school, they can build the room and hopefully have it done by springtime, so we can have the teachers be able to move in through the summertime, ready for next school year.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Done.
Yes.
I appreciated seeing all the different bids and the thorough report on the very detailed report from the company that you were proposing that we could go with. And then I guess my question would be, you said the teachers are thrilled. Were teachers part of the group and collaborating on designing? And
Completely. It went through a number of different alterations. We've been working on it for probably 6 or 8 months. So it's been altered numerous times to suit the needs of the teachers that will be working that area. So it's pretty much exactly what they're looking for.
John, the only question I had was how close is this recommended bid to what you had expected the project to cost us?
The architects, their expectation was 300,000. And the reason they do that is because if it comes in low by 10%, then all the bids are thrown out. My anticipation, I hate to say it, but I anticipated it would be 225, and Jim Voris thought it would be about 250. So it's very close to what we really thought it was, but just to keep from having everything thrown out, we went a little high. Plus, we don't really know what contractors are doing right now.
Right.
And from the bids you see, $108,000 difference between the top and the bottom. A lot of them thought this would be great winter work, but they really didn't need the work. They're terribly busy right now.
Right. So related to that, and my last question is from a PI fund perspective, you're comfortable that we've got room for this?
Yes. Of that $225,000, $75,000 will be coming from state funds. Thanks to our group here. Andrea was able to make that available to us. And so now, instead of being the 225, it's only $150,000 out of PI funds.
We were able to allocate some money out of a component of ESSER that's just earmarked for special education. So I worked with Mr. Ames. He put together all the necessary documentation. We've submitted it to the state. So we're just waiting right now on the final approval. But yes, that will help offset that cost a bit.
Anything else?
Those ESSER monies were the same ones that we've already realized that we could account for in other ways, or is this new money that we weren't expecting?
So this is new money. You can help me on this, Rob. They continue to roll out different components. So we finished all of the approval for the original 3 ESSER funds, and then late, I want to say maybe September, October, another ESSER fund rolled out, but designated just for students with special needs. That is separate from what we've already allocated from the other ESSER funds.
That's great. Thanks for watching for that.
Anything else? All right, Mr. Giuffre, can we vote on that?
Yes.
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 Yes, motion carried. The final treasurer's resolution item is a resolution to approve removal of inventory by gift, sale, or destruction. And I'll go ahead and make that motion. Is there a second? Mrs. Washburn seconded, and that is the materials are listed there. Anybody have any questions or discussion? All right, Mr. Giuffre, can we vote on that? Yes.
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 What are we doing with the VHS recorder? Just kidding. Yes.
Motion carried. Yes, we're going to start our own little Smithsonian here with some. Very good. All right. If there is nothing else under the treasurer's items, we move to Director of Human Resources. And I will ask Mr. Carter, it looks like there are a couple of things that have been added. And so I'll ask him for a report before we make that motion.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Lorenz. There are a couple of things that are on here, and it's in reference to our swimming program at the high school. Our swimming season is already kind of started. Unfortunately for Loveland, but fortunate for the coaches, there was an offer from a Division I university swim opportunity for our coach. That's the kind of quality folks that we have coaching for us, and that they were able to get that position. So this was oh my gosh, our season has started. We need to kind of figure out what we're going to do. And swimming in Southwest Ohio, it's a pretty tight-knit group. So the people, the folks that are coaches and the different programs, different schools that have programs, they're typically they all kind of know one another, and everybody already had their spots. We were really fortunate to be able to have in that next section you see there, for the supplemental positions, we have the two resignations, and then we have some folks who are going to split they're not able to commit to a full-time spot at each spot, so they're splitting the two roles. But Mr. Knatzer was really happy for us to be able to find the quality that we did at the kind of time frame that we had. I would also like to point out, which isn't in yellow, but we have some resignations from some folks, Dr. Lorenz, Mr. Mintz, and Mr. Heusler, 2 bus drivers that have resigned, and they they're both moving on, retirement and resignation. And I just know that they've those kind of folks put in lots of time and energy for us and do a really great job. So I just wanted to make sure to point that out to you.
Appreciate that being pointed out. I would just mention that, those bus drivers have served us well. Bus driving is not an easy job. And so they have served us well. And I also would like to point out to the board and
Dr. Lorenz,
sorry.
Oh, there you go. You were muted for a second. You might want to repeat what you just said.
Thank you. I'm sorry, and I don't know why it muted. I wasn't pressing anything, but it does things I don't want it to do. I did want to mention, beyond the service as bus drivers that these gentlemen have performed for us, Mr. Heusler was at one time also a school board member and served the district well in that capacity as well. So.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Lorenz. The rest of the report are all things that were on the original report. Something that's a little bit different, I think, in the principal reports you heard that our intermediate school 5th graders are going to Camp Kern. That's starting tomorrow, and it's Thursday and Friday. Typically, up until COVID, that had been an overnight kind of a trip. Last year and this year, it is just a day trip, but the kids will be here in the morning and then they won't get back here until 8:30 at night. So some of our students with special needs, some of those paraprofessionals need to have some extended time, making sure that we're taking care of those kids at Camp Kern. And that is in section D for those parapros. So that's something that's a little different. That's typically not on my report. So I just wanted to make sure to point that out. So other than that, it's stuff that you guys have seen and typical kind of things. Any questions?
Okay, well, let's get a motion first and then we'll see if there are questions, but I don't like them to do a motion. Is there a motion to approve the resolutions of the Director of Human Resources?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Doherty moved and Ms. Pettit seconded. Questions?
Garth, maybe it was in Mike's report, not yours, but there was some commentary about bus driver shortages getting more significant. Would you comment on that situation?
Yeah, what I can tell you is that our substitutes for bus drivers are very difficult to find. Not only substitutes, but people who are willing to do the job in the first place. This isn't unique to Loveland. There are lots of school districts in Southwest Ohio and quite frankly across the country where we're seeing the same types of things. The reason that it was in Mr. Broadwater's report is that when there's a time at which we feel as if the number of substitutes that are available and a number of absences that we know that are going to occur on specific days, then there has to be some work that we have to make sure to do to make sure that our busing for our students is continuous and that there's not an interruption. That's why he mentioned in the report, Mr. OC at the transportation department is working closely with Mr. Ames, and I can let Mr. Ames speak to it if he'd like to. But there are a couple of dates coming up, and they're actually here where we are really short on substitutes, and we know some absences that are occurring, and Mr. OC has been able to have a plan for how we're going to attack that. So our bus services are going to continue. Some other local districts have more of an issue than we do when it comes to volume of substitutes being short and having to cancel certain routes, and that being on a rotating basis, depending upon what route that is in certain districts. We're not at that point where we're canceling routes. We're at a point to where we're covering extra routes in certain ways. We just wanted it to be something that I know that Mike has talked about wanting you guys just to be aware of, and something that's obviously okay for us to talk about, for our community to be aware of, that it's something that we keep a close eye on. We're continuing to want to find additional substitutes across the board, whether it's in the buildings or driving buses. And for you guys to know that we have plans to make sure that we are continuing to offer the services that we need for our kids to get to school.
If I jump in, I put it on my board update, and John, if you want to hop in with more specific information, my concern is, we don't want to cancel any routes or have to not provide transportation. The thing I would ask for our parents is patience. If we have a bus driver that has to do a double route, that it might mean some of the timings a little bit different. We'll communicate it as much as possible. We may have to open or have students dropped off the building a little bit earlier so they can do the double route. I don't want to speak for John, but that's for the community to be aware that it is an issue. But John, if you want to kind of hop in and echo anything I missed or Garth missed.
Sure. It's Greg Ossie and Lori Stoltz struggle every day to try to cover the routes. Quite often, the two of them are driving. We will bring in retired drivers. We're trying to coax a few of them into coming to drive. And I said, I will ride with you to help you if you would be willing to drive. So, but it is just a thing where if we need to cover a route because there is not a person, as Mike said, the bus will go out and pick up a neighborhood close to this school, drop the children at the building as soon as they get here. Usually the children wait in their bus until 7:25 or 7:35, but we'll drop them. They'll go to the cafeteria. The administration will watch them while that bus runs out to grab another group who will obviously come back late. And not only do they come back late, that bus is then late getting to its next route. And it does the same thing at the next route. So it's a staircase thing that just continues to compound itself. So if we can avoid it, that will save everything, but we anticipate it happening at some point in time.
And let me just kind of pile in. So we have two, I would assume, full-time drivers that have resigned or retired.
Yes.
And does that leave us permanently short for now for two full-time drivers for next semester?
No, we have typically 4 employees who are driving for us wherever they're needed. So now we are down to 2 that we call them on-call subs. So they're available, but right now they're driving all the time.
And then do we, quick questions, and I know the answer to this, but I'll just reflect it. Do we now pay equivalently or as well as other districts in order to attract, especially that substitute talent that we need?
Our sub rates are, well, it depends. Everybody's sub rates seem to go up every day. So you're always chasing whoever's feeling in worse position.
Yeah. For example, you know how here recently in the past couple of board meetings, we talked about an increase for our substitute pay that included our bus drivers. Other districts at other times are also doing that. So when I gave you guys our report of here is a look at Southwest Ohio, here's where we're kind of stacking up, that continues to evolve. And there are many things that other districts, I wouldn't say many things, but there's incentives that they are trying to get because everybody's trying to get drivers, sign-on bonuses, raising the pay, things like that. We've been pretty fortunate so far, and we're not in a situation like some of our neighboring districts are in. We have some folks who are pretty loyal to us that substitute for us, but I can tell you that we did increase the sub rate. But Mr. Ames is correct. Other districts are also increasing theirs. So don't be surprised if I give a report maybe at the 6 months from now or 3 months from now to say, hey, just so you know, this is what this report looks like on how we compare now as to compare to what we were at the beginning of the year, and maybe it's something that we would want to look at.
So I know we are continuing to look at the high school busing topic. We don't have any answers on that, but I didn't think about this potential problem if we did get to the point of creating some new support for high school busing down the road. Are we going to be able to find drivers?
That's a major concern, Mr. Doherty.
We have enough drivers just to get the children that we're taking care of, just barely enough drivers to do those. So if we had another 15 buses at the high school, we would need probably 6 drivers to assist in doing that, just because we would move other things around, but we would need at least an additional 6 drivers.
Well, I'll stay hopeful that the job market changes over the coming months. But this is, it's just in summary, I hear you calling, be on alert, be warned, there could be a problem. We don't have a problem today, but we could have a problem in the coming weeks or
Tomorrow. It's that
Imminent.
tight. I mean, it's pretty tight.
All right, got it.
So like Greg Ossie and John Ames have done a great job of trying to get those routes covered, but it's tight right now. And as Gar said, every district's experiencing it.
Mr. Doherty, this isn't a part of my report, but I'm fine with it. And this isn't just a bus driver substitute issue. I will tell you that something that we have done at the central office level to make sure that we are trying to have as many substitutes as possible for paraprofessionals and for our teaching staff. We've got some building subs that we, in essence, what this means for a building sub is that we go ahead and tell somebody, hey, we will go ahead and can we lock you in for the entire month, instead of them maybe taking a day here at Loveland and having a day at Indian Hill, another day back at Loveland, then they go to Little Miami. We lock them in because we know there's going to be a need, and every district is trying to lock in subs, because if you don't lock in those subs, you're going to be on the short end of the stick. The good news is that people like to come sub in Loveland. That's a benefit. We have great kids here, and we have staff that are pretty welcoming to substitutes when they are in. But I will tell you that sub shortage is not just a bus driver issue. I'm not trying to alarm anybody, but it's a daily process that building secretaries, building principals, where can we find coverage? How are we asking teachers to not have their planning time to cover certain rooms? Lots of different things that happen on a daily basis because of the shortage of subs. It is a real thing. It is something we deal with on a daily basis. Not trying to alarm you, just wanted, it seemed like the appropriate time to, if we're talking about bus drivers, to say it's an issue across the board.
Just to give us a quick feel, in a normal year, and this obviously is in a normal year, how many subs are we using throughout the system each day?
I would say on a typical year, and I can run a report and provide that for you guys, but I would say as a building principal, I knew a typical day, we might have 3 subs in the building, and that was a staff of roughly 65 folks. That would be kind of a norm of those 65 folks, that we might have 3 people out. I can tell you now that the number of absences hasn't really increased from our staff. It's just the availability of the sub is the issue. So we don't necessarily have way more absences. We just have an issue with, it's way more of a problem because we're trying to shift and cover where we haven't had to do that in the past. But over the past year and a half through the pandemic, people who were willing to come in and sub, they weren't wanting to be in an environment where they're exposed to lots of people, and it has really hurt. And then just job market in general, I think over the past year and a half has made a difference as well. So I think it's a compounded COVID issue. But I will just tell you that, it's something that I'm really grateful that when we made the increases to the substitute rates, that was something we were able to work out. It's something that we continue to work with, and it's kind of a reality right now that we're all trying to grab up all the people that we can to make sure that we've got quality folks in front of our students.
I thought you did a good job previously of alerting us to the substitute problem. Probably my failing in not making the connection to the driver group. So thanks for calling it out. It's something I guess everybody needs to be concerned about now.
Routes getting canceled until this school year, and as they said, it's a problem in other districts, a big problem.
It's a sobering, serious report, which I will try to diffuse slightly with a little bit of humor like I usually do. Just want to remind you that Ms. Pettit was in fact a bus driver. And so I just want you to have that on your list.
Can you be encouraged?
Mr. Ames says he'll ride with you.
Oh, watch out, kids.
So there's the thanks and the accolades you get, Michelle. When you,
Keys.
yes.
You laugh. We had a sub shortage once before when I first retired out of bus driving and went to the high school. And they used to run a bus up to me at the high school, and I'd get off that job and hop on this bus and they'd drive my car back. So,
Do what you got to do, right?
yeah, that was then.
All right.
all
Any
for
other
the kids.
questions on the human resources item? We could just add Ms. Pettit's name to the list, right? All right, Mr. Giuffre, can we vote on that?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Yes.
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 Motion carried. You'll recall earlier that when we adopted the agenda, we did remove 8.2 from the agenda. So I believe that we are at the end of the business that we need to complete. And I believe that Mr. Doherty is still winning with the shortest meeting record from last time. But I think we did an efficient job of covering a lot of business this evening. So if there's
Did you see
nothing,
that half page of minutes?
I did, I read them all. So if there's nothing else that needs to come before, Ms. Pettit moves to adjourn. And I heard Mr. Doherty second. And I don't think it's debatable according to Robert. So Mr. Giuffre, can we vote on that?
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion carried. We are adjourned at 8:11.